All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. So welcome everybody to delivering real-time data for BI and analytics with Tunity and XTIVIA. What I wanted to do is say thank you for who's ever attended and also thank you to the XTIVIA team for allowing us to be a part of sharing that story. What we're doing today is we have myself, Jordan Marts, Director of Technology Solutions at Tunity. We have Steve Schieber, who's the Director of Business Intelligence at XTIVIA. Don Velasky, who's also the Senior Business Development Manager at XTIVIA. And I'll let Steve and Don introduce themselves.
Good morning, all. Happy to be here this morning. As Jordan mentioned, I am the Senior Business Development Manager with XTIVIA, so anything from a sales aspect, I'm here to assist you with.
And hi, everyone. I'm Steve Schieber. I'm the Senior Director of Business Intelligence at XTIVIA. I manage that practice, and I'm here to talk about some XTIVIA best practices for developing business intelligence solutions.
Perfect, guys. So let's do a little bit of discussion points on XTIVIA. Who are you guys and what have you guys done throughout the market? If you guys want, you guys can click ahead on my screen. You have control.
Absolutely. I'll start off with who XTIVIA is. We have been around for the past 25 years. And Jordan, I'm having difficulty with advancing to the next slide.
Sure. Sorry about that. Let's just do it that way.
No, that's all right. All right, thank you. So we've been around for the past 25 years. We started out in database support management services. Over the years, we've grown organically as well as through acquisition. We have a number of practices from database support and management, where we are proficient in Microsoft SQL Server, Postgres, Oracle, MySQL, DB2, Informix, MongoDB. We can provide health checks and all sorts of other professional services. We have a remote VDBA program that put us on the map. Through the years, we've added a business intelligence and data warehouse practice where we have expertise in business intelligence specific to TIBCO, Jaspersoft, and Spotfire, the Microsoft stack, SSAS, RSIS, as well as Talend. We have partnerships and relationships with IBI and Click and Pentaho and several others. From a data warehouse standpoint, we're proficient in Teradata and Hyperion, Oracle, DB2, Microsoft SQL Server. We provide Teradata managed services if those are needed. We can help with assessments, implementations, roadmap, and training. We have an application development arm where we are knowledgeable in JavaScript apps, hybrid mobile apps, .NET apps, application performance management. We have a CRM practice where we're aligned with Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, Sugar CRM, Infor CRM, and Sage. We also have an enterprise information management crew where it's all about technology transformation services, service-oriented architecture, event, enterprise, and complex events processing, implementation services. We're aligned with MuleSoft, Teradata, as I've mentioned prior, Software AG. We also have a portal practice where we're partnered with LifeRay, Jaya, and Hippo. We like to tell our clients that we are tech agnostic, that we really base our projects on a client's budgets as well as internal requirements. We have about 265 people employed by XTIVIA with locations in Colorado Springs, Colorado, Austin and Houston, Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, Edison, New Jersey, New York City, New York, as well as a couple offshore locations, one in Hyderabad, India, and a smaller office in Vancouver, British Columbia. We believe in doing the job right out of the gates. And if you could, Jordan, take us to the next slide. Thank you. This just kind of gives a quick overview of those practice areas that were mentioned and some of the good work that we can do. Go on, please. We really want to get to the meat of it here. Of course, we practice in all verticals, manufacturing, distribution, financial, retail, insurance, healthcare sciences, and energy. We have a number of partners, which you'll see on the next slide. And some very align very well with the Tunity and the products that you're going to see today. Going to the next slide. We have approximately about 460 active accounts that we call upon. And let's jump right into best practices. So Steve, please take it from here.
Sure, thanks, Don. So let's talk a bit about best practices in creating business intelligence solutions. As you know, business intelligence and data warehouse solutions can have a reputation of being costly and time-consuming exercise. So rather than focusing on justifying the total cost of ownership, we focus on the value delivered, concentrating on delivering specific ROI objectives. And we try to identify what business problems are specifically being solved by the business intelligence solution. That helps gain greater buy-in from the business regardless of the initial total cost of ownership. Deployment policies. As you begin your development efforts, you should make sure you have specified some deployment policies. These will specify how data is best captured, sorted, and processed in order to maintain a high level of integrity, relevance, and accessibility. When loading data into your enterprise data warehouse, consider how you capture source data and changes to that data. Does it make sense to use change data capture to process changes, or should you use checksums to identify data that has been updated since the last load? At what frequency should data be loaded? Will once per day work, or do you need transaction replication to support near real-time loads? Will you need to support solely change interventions to maintain data history? Will you use hand-coded SQL processes to process the slowly changing dimensions, or an SCD component of an ETL tool? Also consider where your data will be stored and processed. Should everything be kept on-premise, or can you take advantage of cloud-based solutions like Amazon Redshift to control cost and improve performance? These options and others need to be thought through and planned out before development begins. The purpose of business intelligence is to support better decision-making. So it should go without saying that business leaders should provide frequent input from the outset into the design of any business intelligence solution. Business intelligence is equal parts business and technology. Successful business intelligence programs are designed to most effectively cater to the data analysis and reporting needs of business functions. Understanding the technology involved in developing a business intelligence environment is critical to understanding what is possible within a project's scope. Sustainable business intelligence strategies leverage key insights held by both business users and technology professionals, so early and frequent involvement of business leaders is critical to the successful business intelligence strategy. With any business intelligence solution implementation, you need to expect and embrace change. Markets change, business requirements evolve, change always occurs. Look to flexible data structures like a data vault model and ETL automation tools to minimize the effects of change. It's important to ensure that your solution can gracefully handle changes without causing significant work and rework of existing data structures. Time to market is important. It's a fast-changing world, and our customers look to us to be nimble and respond quickly to changes. Now, large rollouts of business intelligence initiatives can lead to confusion, duplication of effort, errors, and user abandonment. So instead, you should limit your initial user participation and implement in stages. You need to understand ultimately how many users and functions you will need to support over time, but strive to reach your goal in incremental steps. Using an agile development methodology, as we do at XTIVIA, is conducive to smaller, frequent rollouts, which are easier to control and lead to successful implementations. Finally, drive to self-service. The ultimate goal of business intelligence is to hand off the project to the appropriate business unit in some form of self-service business intelligence capability. The objective of self-service business intelligence is to enable end users to make decisions based on their own queries and analysis, while also freeing up business intelligence and IT teams to focus on other tasks. It also encourages users to think outside the box when problem solving, leading to better, faster business decisions and insights. Keep the goal of self-service business intelligence in mind when proceeding with solution acquisitions and training plans for business intelligence initiatives. At XTIVIA, we've found over the years that following these general best practice principles for both on-premise and cloud-based solutions helps lead to completing projects that deliver the expected return on investments on time and within budget. So that's basically the best practices we found over the years with implementing projects at XTIVIA. So Jordan, I guess it's your turn.
Perfect, guys, and thank you. I think it's interesting with each one of these different use cases that we approach this with, that all of the different ways that you deal with these problems, I'm going to show you some forms of automation to be able to deliver that. The ways that you can embrace change and deliver the value over time has been fundamental to Attunity's success, and so, you know, really helps resound with what we do well, but also I think just a market need. I haven't always been in sales. I've been an implementation data architect at a number of different organizations. I've been consulting and the sort. So I can relate to not only your issues, but the issues that come with the journey of delivering different value. So what does Tunity do and how do we help you with that? It's data integration and big data management. It's being able to deliver everything to the data lake, prepare the data for analytics, and then be able to understand what you're going to be moving. That's the other hard part. So if you have solutions like Hadoop and big data and you've got data warehouses and you're going on-prem or in the cloud, we can help you with those overall solutions. One thing to note is we're publicly traded. We have over 2,000 customers in 65 countries, and we have about 250 people. You can look at us under ATTU on the web. What I'm going to talk to you about today are two of the three of our products, Replicate and Compose. We have integration of real-time across all these different sources and the ways that they move. We have the ability to do metrics-driven data management with visibility. And in the middle, I'm going to talk about Compose. And what does that automation bring to you when you're building a data warehouse? Our customers look for reliability when they're moving their data. They look for manual intervention. They look to reduce the manual intervention during ETL. And they really are trying to understand what are they paying for and what are they using. These investments in IT and in their investments in data can be significant, and the maintenance of those become hard over time. So as you're using a tool, why not take one that makes and removes the ingestion and replication process? It makes it really easy. So what do we have? We've got Replicate at a core level, which is the ability to take all these different sources from 38 different tools, which can be efficiently moved from any database, data warehouse, or Hadoop platform. It's a product that's intuitive, easy to use, and web-based, simple to configure and manage, and it's one interface to be able to go from source to target and alert you if there's issues. What we want to make sure is that CDC is an understanding of the in-memory transactions that stream into your systems. They're now streamed in real time out to warehouses, accelerating your journey and insights, as well as being able to move you to Kafka APIs, delivering other platforms like Hadoop and HBase and Cassandra and MongoDB in the big data space, but also just to your Teradata, your Netezza environments. What about the other extracts of high-performance data replication? And what does that mean? It's an automated end-to-end replication process. It loads quickly and efficiently. It's driving you to the next generation of CDC technology, combining those in-memory transactions in a streaming format, a high-performance, high-volume data ingest, and then eliminating the need to code ETL, as well as the moving of the data. It is also the widest support in the market today for all different kinds of systems, such as Oracle, DB2, MySQL, SQL Server. It's this timely use and this timely delivery that makes production databases with the lightest impact on them get the real-time realization and ROI for the customers that want to be able to do this. So what does the industry care about when they're looking at moving to a new platform? One of the platform tools that they look at are these outside connectors. They want to be able to have all those different connectors, but they want to be able to have caching in between. And they want to be able to handle if the schema changes, we change with it. They want to be able to do it all in memory, and they want to be able to do it in a drag and drop. They want to be able to reload and write and append. They want to be able to monitor and move and do all different forms of movement. So what is CDC when you look at it from like the use cases that customers often look at? Well, why CDC technology? Well, it's real time, it's low latency, and it's also light impact. And that's one of the biggest things. If you're running your production systems, you want to be able to enforce that with the lightest impact methodology. You want to be able to stream Kafka or multi-dimensional data sets in multiple directions. You want to be able to analyze and audit and look at changes and store them. And you want to be able to handle the volume. So when you look for this, you want a relational database. You want to be able to hook into SAP, your mainframes, your cloud-hosted databases, as well as your queries off of your data warehouse. The next part is the broadest range of support for data replication that we bring to the market. It's all these different sources and targets across all these different platforms that you can adjust and move. They can support change data capture as well as message brokers to be able to move all this context. Being that it's SQL Server, DB2, those are classics, but your warehouses, how do you migrate that? How do we get to those source systems after we've migrated the warehouse into a data lake? And how are we storing that for the long term? What's the plan? So whenever we're doing these things, we want to make sure that people understand that we can then take your legacy systems and help migrate them to a new environment and how that's going to be pulled. When you have the Exadatas and the SAPs, Mongos, etc., all these get brought together. CDC can be done in batch can be done in batch or source, and they have native database clients for security, and they handle for DDL propagation, such as filtering and transformation. You want to be able to identify zero downtime, and you want to be able to minimize the administrative overhead. This is a graphical user interface, drag and drop, and consistently built to be able to handle for that process. And what we have is this AEM, the component we'll talk about. So what we have is the Tunity Enterprise Manager, giving you an enterprise view of all the different sources, aggregating from a dashboard all the different sources, servers, topics, and tasks that we have. And what you're going to be able to do is discover the topology, the group tasks, sort, drill, and improve the responsiveness for those. So what I'm going to do is use a couple of quotes, but I think it might be best just to get to the demo of the product. This is Attunity's Enterprise Manager. Let's get to Replicate. So Replicate, at a core level, this is like the start screen for us. When we have it, we've got many ways to do administration, but we could start a new task. You can go bidirectionally, full load, apply changes, store changes. You can load into the Azure or into Amazon, into Kafka, into Hadoop, into SQL Server, as we're going to do in this example. We have many different endpoints in this use case. We've got the Azure Event Hub. You've got the file channel for caching in the middle. You've got Kafka, Hadoop, etc. So while we're doing this, we're going to be able to pull this SQL to Hadoop installation and move it across these distances. Each one of these different use cases, including SAP, have complexity to them, but I think we remove a lot of it. And you can export this to source control. You can run a lot of operations. So let's go to how to design a job. In this use case, when we're designing a job, right now it's going into the SQL Server and the Oracle to find out the version and the rest of those installations. Give it a minute, I might need to reload the web page. So Dawn, I love it when these things, when I'm waiting for web pages to come across, I got to reload them. Well, let me reboot this one, and I can start it off from another use case. In this use case, I've got a number of different tasks, and this is me going from my Enterprise Manager to do an Oracle to SQL task. While those are loading, maybe I can go back to my quotes, and we can then come back to this while this is processing. While you're ingesting many different sources. Verizon looks at us from loading their entire data lake. Their financial analytics, their modeling, they have instant visibility for real-time reporting across the enterprise. And what they have is the ability to move this across the business. While they're doing that, they're pulling all these different sources over, and they're pulling a lot of these different metadata sources into their environment. The next step would be the Redshift use case, where Redshift and Tunity and Philips Healthcare are able to transform 35 million records an hour into their overall ecosystem, which is pretty exciting technology. So when they're moving this technology, the next part would be the Fanatics use case. So Fanatics uses Tunity Replicate to be able to move a lot of their different technology and integration in a with zero downtime. So that's a huge part of our overall ecosystem. So when you get this, you want to be able to go to run a couple of our different services. Let me boot up our Tunity Replicate server, and I want to get back to the demo. Okay, so we're opening up Tunity Replicate right now. As it's booting up. So this is a Tunity Replicate. If I got this task, Oracle to SQL Server, I've got an Oracle database. I'm going to select a number of tables across a diverse schema. In this use case, I'd narrow it down to the HR schema and bring those over. But I had many different ways I could select it. I could have added new columns, such as using this transformation rule section to rename the schema, rename tables, columns, add columns, move those over. I could then change the schema name. I could add the insert, update, delete metadata. I could add, concatenate, like, filter, etc. Or just do coalesce to remove nulls or date time changes or look at a delta check to see if something's there. So there's lots of different things you can do. You could even go select the tables. You could go to transform the data types very easily. And there's very simple ways of interacting with the tool that make it very easy to use and remove the complexity. In this use case, I'm moving from an Oracle to a SQL Server. So it bulk loaded, took less than a second to bring all that data over. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at this employees table. This employees table I'm going to generate a bunch of transactions over to. So I'm going from Oracle to SQL. It's reading those objects and it's reconciling them. Any of these different sources could look like this or that. And there's lots of different use cases for how this data could be affected. As you're seeing, there's lots of transactions that are occurring. Insert, update, deletes. And you're going to see all these transformations that are happening. And so now you got 100 records per second that are transforming it, and you're seeing a lot of moving data sets. From an enterprise view, you have the enterprise manager, which we showed you a minute ago, and that gives you another purview into all the different tasks that are running. In this use case, you've got the Oracle to SQL. You can look at a single task and say, oh, it's running a lot of different change processing. The same screen that's over on Enterprise Manager is over on Replicate. So you can see that there's a nice ease of use within the technology and a nice ease of use within the overall ecosystem. So one of the things that we do is we're going to bring over the different data sets and we'll talk about Compose. Compose is another solution. Let's say you're a global insurer, and this global insurer is trying to figure out their claims adjudication and their processing and understanding if there's duplicate claims and figure out how to reconcile all those different entities. They need a warehouse to do such, and they spent 9 weeks can coding all this with ETL tools. And they could only handle 2 major change requests to the data model each year, which meant that the budget was high, that the value was reducing, and that the ability to change and adapt to the overall ecosystem needed another tool or another technology to help them with this overall ecosystem. So what we're doing is we're looking at a data warehouse automation tool. You could take all that process and you could push it down to the like ETL, reducing it down by 95%. You could have monthly changes, so 6 times better response rate, an 80% reduction in data warehouse implementation costs. So that data warehouse manager picked it up, and it saved their project, and it allowed them to move so much faster than they had before. But why are data warehouses often such a struggle for change? Well, it's the demands of the business. The business has new metrics. They want to analyze the data in a different way. They want to be able to understand the different environments with covering all the aspects of the business and make more decisions faster. But these processes are not addressed to deal with complexity of hand coding. They're not here for having 12, 14 resources writing ETL, and they're difficult and expensive. Although XTIVIA wants to help you with the consulting engagement, they also want to help make sure that you're successful long-term, and that, you know, although they'll be there forever, they're also adding a high value of help in how you approach this overall solution. So we want you to be able to maintain it yourself as well. So it took a year, which was no longer required to do change control. It was automated and moving very, very quickly. So 70% of their code went away. And what we need to change is, how do they spin off new data marts? How do they extract it to Excel? How do I connect this to my BI tool? We're working on this. It takes a lot of time, and we have other things we're working on. Well, we can't prioritize that. Well, no, that's not what they want to do at all. And what they want to be able to do is they want to be able to look at what it takes to then update the warehouse, create an ungoverned data silo, and be able to handle for BI developers with lots of data integration. So what's the complexity inside of a data warehouse? There's the landing zone. There's complexity of 3 and F, the way you structure the data tables. There's the schema. There's all kinds of things that go into this overall mix. So when you're looking at these, you have semantic infrastructures such as like SAP Business Objects, Cognos, ClickView, and Power BI that allow you to create metadata around what's inside each one, even the data marts. So there's a lot of things that are moving. So when you're looking at this, you've got these complex projects, and you have many, many features that are hard to deal with. The transforms, the code, the wiring, and there's resistance to change. So after, automation helps you to build this, to operate it, and to move it for the change control. So what is data warehouse automation? Data warehouse automation is using these class of tools that allow you to interact with different data sets and different traditional methods to simplify the requirements, reduce the risk, automate, and then change the requirements. So this is where we took it to TDWI, and they helped with looking at some of the valuation of what the savings can be. So each one of these different traditional processes built a data mart, and it moves the time to value much, much faster, makes it more frequent, it makes it fewer costs, and it does a lot of savings. And what it does is it makes these decisions so much more efficient for being able to process this overall implementation. So as you accelerate these processes, you want to optimize these, you want to reduce the risk. What does Compose do? It helps you with the modeling, it automates the best practices, and it takes in the considerations of extracting, loading, and transforming and change propagation. This is an example of the different tools, so you can discover, implement a data model, and then you can build the ETL. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into a Compose implementation on SQL Server. We'll go to all the projects right here. And in real time, I've got a MySQL database right here that's moving a bunch of data to SQL Server using this Northwind data. I've got a fully baked product. If I can click on that, go here. So I've got all these different things that have been built out. Let's reset this and let's build a data warehouse in 5 minutes. So what I've done now is I've dropped all the tables that were previously there. You see how there are a bunch of tables here that get generated? There's nothing in this database now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse engineer that database. We're going to discover from the source, this MySQL source, reverse engineering the data. So in here, we go to here, and we move these records over. So now we generate relationships out of that model. That model now contains a bunch of different data models. Those can be supported and maintainable now that I've generated a new data warehouse. So these data warehouse tables have been generated. Watch this. A bunch of new tables were now created and managed. This process now validates using metadata to look at changes in the model. If those changes change over time, we address such. This also then allows you to generate the tables, commands. This allows you to generate the mappings right here. And as you're doing this, you want to be able to handle the creation of those projects, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these jobs, and we're going to run a bunch of scripts and load that data warehouse. So right now, in the Categories Hub, there's a bunch of new data here. In the Product here, bunch of new data. So this is all the Products Hub. So let's do this one. So now you got a bunch of statements that have executed, and they ran, and they loaded that data. What we're going to do now is we're going to run this in CDC to be as close and near real time as the window, as your batch window. And what it's doing is it's generating hundreds of scripts. So if you view this, it's generating lots and lots of SQL underneath the covers to execute this. So underneath here, the Compose engine is populating tables and running logs and skipping through and running. What it's doing in reality, and this is what's interesting, as each one of them, you got a lot of detail around what tasks are driven, but in the designer, you can look at the ETL commands. There are hundreds and hundreds of scripts that get generated here. And these are all SQL statements that then run the insert, update, delete process. So what I think is unique is whenever you come here, you can see the changes that happen, all the different extracts. And then you can run all these different performance increases as they go. Next, what we'll do is we'll generate a data mart. This data mart will be driven around sales. It's got orders and products. And what we'll do is it'll pull in a star schema that can build all these objects out. When you pull it out, you pull this and you define the date, the granularity of detail. And it generates by creating tables that are now a data mart, which could be on a different server, ETL code to maintain it, and the ETL code to execute it. Data marts have different constructs and they have different workflows, so you can then move all that data. So then you have certain employees, customers. So we have customers, suppliers, order date, and let's do some level of quantity, price, etc. So what I can show you here is I have my quantity and I have my unit price as the objects, and I have my suppliers. Maybe that's not what I need here. Maybe I have my customer, that's my customer ID. Let's do my customer name. So this is the customer ID, by what price, by what time. What I can also do is I can categorize each one of these by each one of the different prices, or I can categorize my customers by each one of the prices and build more dynamic. What we've done here is we're building a nice UI for pivoting, slicing, and building data. But this isn't what the presentation tool is. It's just helping you to understand what's inside my data. So in the last 5 minutes, we built a warehouse. It's still something that you need to do to manipulate a lot of different coverage and a lot of different metadata, but allows you to do something very easy when you're extracting and moving your code. That was the demo, sorry. But as we do this, the dev, test, prod, and accepting variables and UIs is key. This allows you to then use wizards using Inman and Data Vault and other model-driven approaches, which are key. And what we have is you've got all these different entities and all these different processes. I don't see any questions at this time, but Don or Steve, do you have any questions? Otherwise, I think we're good.
No, excellent presentation. Thank you. And I think you can see why Tunity is a great partner of XTIVIA's and how it fits in nicely with our other offerings. At any point in time, if anyone has questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and we look forward to assisting you with both potential opportunities around Replicate with CDC, as well as your data warehouse automation needs with Compose. Thank you so much, Jordan, for imparting your knowledge on both products to our audience today.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right.